I know Evan has a lot to get off his chest, not only about Joe Mixon, but he also wants to talk about the state of the running back market. So before we jump into the question about Joe Mixon, Evan, the floor is yours.
Oh gosh. All right, we're going right into it. Okay.
Go.
All right, here we go. So talking about how running back is viewed in the league, how they're being treated. There's been a lot of topic of conversation of that with Joe Mixon's reconstruction of his contract, let's say. It kind of sparked a big fire. So we want to talk about that. And I think the easiest way for us to kind of examine this is to look through two separate lenses. All right, we're going to take turns on this. We're going to do the objective analysis and just see what we're looking at and what we have to work with. And then we're going to look at it from the human perspective, which I think is also very important to be considered, right? So firstly, we're looking for someone to blame, right? We're like, oh gosh, the running backs have been devalued. They can't get paid anymore. What's going on? Whose fault is this? Got to find someone to blame. You can miss me with all it's the analytics people's fault. Okay. We've been constantly saying anytime that people talk about analytics, a common phrase is no one cares about the analytics. Teams don't care, don't believe, don't use this stuff. And now the theory is that it's permeated the entire league and that there's the evil analytics guy and the king GM's ear telling them all this evil stuff. No, guys, like analytics people were observing trends, seeing different things and saying, hey, this is what's happening. They're reporting on this, right? When your broker calls you in 2005 and says, hey, man, these newspaper stocks you have aren't doing so well. This internet thing's not going away. You don't yell at the broker and go, why did you devalue my newspaper stock, right? It's not his fault. He's just telling you the state of things. All right. Had to get that out of the way. So who do we blame? That's the question, right? Whose fault is it that the running backs are in such a precarious position in today's NFL? And the answer is it's the NFLPA and it's the NFL. The fault lies squarely with them right now. The rules have changed to favor the passing game and give it more importance, which is part one. The other part is the CBA, negotiated by the league and the players union, has instituted a number of rules that we'll talk about that incentivize teams to adjust how they pay running backs, and it severely reduces a running back's power to negotiate, to get to free agency, to change teams, to get more money. So let's go into that a little more. What are the NFLPA and NFL doing here? One change was the franchise tag, right? Before, you used to be able to hold out on the franchise tag and the penalties were not so severe that you could avoid doing it. We're also talking about the running backs wanting more money. Now, you are penalized heavily if you hold out on the franchise tag. You get escalating fines for minicamp up to $50,000 a day. Training camp fines are $50,000 a day. And you lose about, on the fifth year of your rookie contract, you lose about $600,000 worth of game checks each week if a running back sits out on his fifth year contract right now. Another aspect is the performance bonuses are largely based on snap percentages. And we'll get more into that later about what are running backs looking like and what are the percentages that they need to hit. But it's unrealistic expectations. It's something along the lines of 85% is the top performance bonus, and the average running back is only playing in about 78% in the top 5 of their position. Okay. The franchise tag for running backs has gotten lower. It's gotten more affordable. These running backs are wanting the 12, 13, 14, 15, $16 million a year contracts, right? But you can pay them $10 million on the franchise tag. And then you can tag them again for about $13 million. So you can control them for $23 million for 2 years, as opposed to paying them and not having this long-term obligation, right? Not having this guaranteed money you give out. The other problem is the rookie wage scale that's been in place so far, right? The running back's prime is as soon as they're coming out of college on that rookie scale, right? They have a downward slope, very steep, into their mid to late 20s, right? While other positions like offensive line, quarterback start to progress and get better as their second contract comes around. So from a team perspective, when you're making this investment and choosing where to put your money, you're either buying in the stock that's very likely to be trending up versus the stock that, even though good, is very likely to be trending down. So just from a objective perspective, teams, businesses, etc., in any aspect would be like, I am going to allocate my money toward an investment I see appreciating in value, not drastically depreciating on top of that. All these are incentives for teams to use that draft and dump after tagging strategy, right? So let's look a little more at kind of the position landscape and contracts and what running backs are facing right now. We know that running back is very dependent on other positions, right? Offensive
Super.
line, scheme, play calling, box count, a lot of these factors heavily weigh on what a running back can do. That makes it difficult to say that you're going to allocate a lot of resources to them because they need these other things to be functioning well to be able to perform as well as they can. There's also less fluctuation there's more fluctuation, I'm sorry, at running back than there are at other positions, right? Just looking briefly at yards per attempt last year, top 5 after if you had 100 carries, Khalil Herbert, J.K. Dobbins, James Cook, Eric Jones, Tony Pollard. Looking at the year before, Rashad Penny, Tony Pollard, Nick Chubb, Jonathan Taylor, D'Ernest Johnson, Miles Sanders. Year to year, in terms of yards per attempt, all these different circumstances conflate and allow running backs to be the best version that they can. But we see a lot of turnover versus wide receiver, right? Devontae Adams, Stefan Diggs, Justin Jefferson, some variation of those guys are going to be top 5 receivers. Tight ends, Kittle, Kelsey, Andrews. We're confident they're going to be top 5 tight ends. Burrow, Allen, Mahomes, and on and on and on, right? Even for edge rushers. That's part of the other part of you have to feel good about your investment that you're going to get that return. And it's hard for running backs because they rely on those other those other variables, right? Looking at these top running backs from the last couple of years, right? And Aaron Jones had to restructure in 2022 and then a year later had to take another $5 million pay cut just so he wouldn't be cut. Dalvin Cook, 2 years into his new deal, got cut. Zeke, 2 years into his new deal, got cut. Todd Gurley signed an extension in 2018, and after 2019, he got cut before his new deal even kicked in. So all these guys are getting is really that signing bonus money, that guaranteed money up front, and they're not seeing even the length of the contract. So it's almost like the contract extension doesn't necessarily matter. You're not going to see the full impact of it or play it out. Austin Ekeler had some words on this, talking about a tweet that Matt Miller kind of referenced with talking about, hey, teams are using this strategy and spelled it out. Again, just saying this is the state of things. I understand why teams view this. And Ekeler said, this is the kind of trash that has artificially devalued one of the most important positions in the game. Everyone knows it's tough to win without a top running back, and yet they act like we are discardable widgets. This is not a mindset that's been purported by the media and everyone else, right? This is people reporting on the state of things, okay? Let's test this out. Let's look at this, right? Every Super Bowl winning team's leading rusher for the last 6 years since 2017, and their cap hitting millions. Isaiah Pacheco, 0.72. Sony Michel, 1.79. Ronald Jones, 1.93. Damian Williams, 1.7. Sony Michel, 1.75. LeGarrette Blount, 1.25. It's as much about supply and demand as having a bevy of cheaper alternatives as well. There are a lot of talented athletes coming out of college for cheap, not to mention a number of successful veterans like Zeke, Dalvin, Fournette, Hunt, Ekeler, who are available right now. And this is not cornerback. This is not wide receiver. There are not 3 to 4 of these on the field at all times, or most of the time. There's only so many spots. It's like quarterback, except there's so few quarterbacks and a lot of running backs available. There's only so many spots. And if you can pay $10 for Cheerios or get the generic version for $2, many people are going to opt for the latter. You can supplement the difference in that running back production with formation deployment, with blocking schemes, just like Shanahan has, just like Mike McCoy had, or I'm sorry, Mike, I'm blanking on the Dolphins new head coach. McDaniel, there you go. Thank you.
Sorry.
Just like they've done with all these no-name running backs and have continued to do. And just to add a little bit more to it, 8 of the last year's 12 yards per carry leaders were all on rookie contracts. These players are on the field at the top 10 players of the position for each position group. Running backs of the top 10 are only on the field, the best of the best, 70% of the time. And that matters because we talked about that 85% metric that you've got to hit to get your highest performance bonuses that many offensive linemen, defensive linemen manage to hit that are starters or top 10 at their position. Just looking at other positions, O-line, Top 10, 100%. Quarterbacks, 99.6. Top 10 wide receivers, 94.1 of snaps. Tight ends, 85.3. So being on the field less than these other positions inherently makes you less valuable. So all of these different constraints on top of what we talked about with the NFL, with the NFLPA, with all of these things that have been negotiated, this all comes together to devalue the running back. That is the problem. It's very long. It's very complicated, as you can probably tell by how long I've been ranting about it. There's a lot of factors that go into this, right? And we kind of think back and we go, oh, well, just in 2011, right? We had Adrian Peterson and Chris Johnson, CJ2K. The impact they had was incredible, right? How can running backs not get those kind of contracts today? And the reason is because if you adjust for inflation, Adrian Peterson would have been making $25 million a year. Chris Johnson would have been making $25 million a year. Does anyone feel good about paying any running back $25 million a year right now?
Nope.
If you're talking about the big dogs,
Derrick
Barry
Henry.
Sanders, Terrell Davis, Emmitt Smith, their inflation adjusted average per year was over $30 million. It is a different era because of how the rules have changed. So when we're looking at that, just as a percentage of the cap, Adrian Peterson was at 11.8. Chris Johnson was 11.2. The highest active player right now is at 8.1 with Christian McCaffrey. Most of the top paid backs lie around the 6% mark. It is just the NFL allocating their resources based on what they can exploit because of the franchise tag. The running backs can't hold out. They get penalized so heavy. They don't meet the snap thresholds. They can't get the bonuses that other positions do. Their rookie wage scale is on the inverse of most careers, where their production is great early and then they tail off toward the end while others improve as they go on through their career. This is just, it's just all those different factors that conflate to this running back problem, right? So that's the just objective analysis lens, right? Let's just look at the human element briefly. These guys are awesome to watch. They're freaky athletes. They're so much fun. Some of our greatest memories are incredible plays that we've seen running backs do amazing things that we didn't think were possible.
Mm-hmm.
They are so much fun, and then a position that is the utmost importance to many in grade school, high school, even college, and they put their bodies on the line constantly and deserve to be compensated fairly for that. Unfortunately, in life, we are not purely objective or analytical, right? We're not purely driven by these human elements. Otherwise, we wouldn't want something in it for us in trades and business deals. World hunger would be solved and wealth distribution wouldn't be so skewed, right? But I digress. Like many things, objective and human elements are going to have to come together a little bit here. So, what are some ways that we can quote unquote fix this? I think a bigger rookie contract scale is something that's kind of been floated out specifically for running backs, or more compensation for them early in their careers, or shorter deals. I think that's a temporary fix, but I think you see NFL teams then adjust and say, okay, we're not going to draft or draft running backs in the first round or the second round. We'll just wait till later when their scale is less, and then we pay them less. So very, very temporary fix until teams adjust. RBs need to try and negotiate as soon as they are eligible. Third year, right away, as soon as you can, because even if you won't see the life of your entire extension, as we saw with many of the top backs, you still get your signing bonus. You're still getting that guaranteed money. Again, not a fix, a solution, but it's a way they can kind of fight back at this. Another way is introduce, and I think this is probably the best, most reasonable way, is to introduce a touch count or a snap count performance bonus that they can actually hit, because the 85% snap count number for the largest performance bonuses is nearly unattainable in today's NFL. And lastly, and most importantly, the players union, the NFLPA, they've got to stand up for their players and negotiate for and not against them, giving them back their leverage, because the best option is probably going to be to go after the powers of the franchise tag and try to limit those. The NFL will fight hard against that, but they need to do that or find some way to cape for these players. And that's kind of where I'll end my spiel. Is